So Visibility CFO and tax advisor, what it means to work with the CFO focused tax advisor is we're going to work with you not only with that financial lens to make better operating business decisions, but also with that tax lens to be able to minimize your tax liability. So we call it a 13-week cash forecast. Helps them plan out how they're going to deploy their money, right? And how they're going to spend it and how it will yield revenue, how it will yield future costs. You do not hire in your company to grow your company. You hire to buy back your time. And when you focus on buying back your time, growth inevitably happens.
Looking for real stories of real people making a difference in the Grand Canyon State? Welcome to Finding Arizona Podcast. We sit down with Arizona's inspiring entrepreneurs, creators, and community leaders and give you a front row seat to their journeys, passions, and projects. Whether you're a local trying to find a hidden gem or just enjoy watching someone chase their dreams, Finding Arizona is your go-to place for authentic conversations with a desert twist. New episodes drop weekly, so hit subscribe and start exploring Arizona one story at a time. Welcome back, everybody, to the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose, and as always, we bring in special guests every week. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to introduce Andrew Stubbs. He is the director of CFO services at Visibility CPA, where he partners with companies to bring financial clarity, strategy, and confidence to their decision making. With years of experience guiding organizations through growth, planning, and profitability, Andrew knows that great business isn't just about balancing the books. It's about understanding the story behind numbers. At Visibility CPA, he and his team empower entrepreneurs to make smart moves, scale sustainability, and stay ahead of the curve. Please welcome to the podcast, Andrew Stubbs. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Jose. Appreciate the introduction.
Absolutely.
Happy to be here.
I'm very excited. So some of the things in this episode, we'll talk about what makes strong financial leadership so crucial for small and growing businesses, how Andrew approaches helping clients find focus in their finances, and why visibility, both in numbers and in values, matters more than ever. So that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit. But first, I'm going to hit you with the question that we typically ask everyone is, Sure. Give us a little bit of your origin story. How does Visibility CPA come into your life? I imagine everyone is affected by finances and money and things like that. But I would love to understand your childhood a little bit. Like, what was it like and what your parents did for a living too?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I hope my answer, as I try to cover the breadth of questions there, I don't answer future questions, but let me start. Briefly, background wise, I grew up in central Kansas, and very humble background, humble beginnings. My mom's from Peru, from another country, kind of brought the entrepreneurial spirit into our home. Nice. There are 5 in my family, and all but one are entrepreneurs in some form or fashion. So, circa 2006, I graduated my degree in accounting, both bachelor's and master's degree, became a CPA shortly thereafter. So I've been a CPA for almost 20 years. Nice. Started out in the traditional, routes of, public accounting, both in audit for a large Big Four firm, and then as a tax, preparer professional, mainly in the mid-size business client space. And what I learned as I moved into tax, kind of stepped away from the larger firms, working in on larger clients, where I didn't really get to see everything and understand how a business operates. I kind of became very infatuated with the struggles of an entrepreneur and watching what it was that they valued and what they needed. From the lens of a tax professional, clearly they were worried about how much they paid in tax. But the strategy side, I felt like was missing. Okay. And I started learning that with a lot of traditional CPA firms, it's really hard to make that a priority when you're consulting with a tax client. It's typically, let's keep you out of trouble, let's keep you compliant. And then as you're making decisions, we'll try to implement strategy, but only if you engage us. The traditional model typically has a lot of clients that they see in a short window of time,
Hmm.
throughout the
Hmm.
year, which is during that, infamous tax season or busy season.
Yeah.
So in about 2011, really enjoyed my time as a tax professional, but wanted to be more strategic. So I moved into advisory, and specifically for a CFO advisory firm where we advise clients
Mhm.
with more of the financial strategy. And that's where the CFO part of my career took off, and really did that all the way up till today.
Nice.
But where things started to evolve was about 6, 7 years ago. I did through there work for a large firm that's focused on CFO advisory and with larger clients. So I got to see
Okay.
small clients, I got to see big clients on the CFO advisory. But one
Yeah.
thing I saw and noticed was that every one of them, as part of their financial or their cash flow
Hmm.
strategy and how they deployed capital, they really wanted to know how are taxes going to impact this.
Mm.
And so I was continuing to always draw on my background as a tax professional, continue to maintain that and really understand, surface level, the the updates, in the tax laws as they pertained to my clients. And so as
Yeah.
I did that and tried to understand different strategies for increasing cash flow by reducing taxes, in addition to other strategies we're implementing on the operating side, taxes never really went away. And I started to notice in 2000, especially as we started our own firm, which we did in 2019, we
Okay.
initially started a firm called Decision Support Solutions, which is our law firm, and
Okay.
then evolved into Visibility CPA or CFO Tax and Advisory,
Got it.
which is a CFO focused tax advisory firm. And I'll explain what that really means and how things kind of came together with, running this consulting practice with my wife, Emily. We're partners,
Yeah.
both in life and in business. She runs the legal side. She's an attorney. Was a litigator for about 13 years and then moved
Oh,
over
okay.
into corporate,
Okay.
which is essentially the preventative side of
Yeah.
the legal practice and keeping people from getting into, trouble, from being
Mhm.
litigated and sued. And then on my end, my focus and really what kind of birthed Visibility CFO and tax advisory was, as a CFO advisor, I worked with a lot of tax professionals
Yeah.
and was really kind of curating financials so that the tax return could be prepared in the form and the manner that aligned with our tax strategies that I
Mhm.
was implementing, and was noticing that these tax professionals, they're really good at understanding the tax law, and they also knew tax strategy, but they just didn't have the bandwidth, given the number of clients that they had, that their focus and their business model was centered around filing and preparing and filing taxes, but
Sure.
not necessarily spending a lot of time with their clients throughout the year. That's where I
Okay.
stepped in.
Okay.
And so a lot of my CFO practice was essentially working with clients to be strategic on all
Yeah.
forms of the operations, including tax. And so as we saw that, partnered with a tax savant, a
Mhm.
subject matter expert in
Yeah.
tax, and specifically in M&A tax, and together we've been able to kind of bridge the two services, because we
Yeah.
were we were doing a lot of the work anyways. We were tracking capital accounts, tracking all information that would go on a K1 for these business owners,
Hmm.
and would be able to see how that flowed. The business's operations would flow to the tax return, and then we would talk about ways to minimize tax. And so we were doing that
Yeah.
anyway. So the tax prep side of everything, keeping them compliant, was not an afterthought, but it was just more of an
Yeah.
ancillary service
Yeah.
instead
Of
of the
course.
main service.
Yeah. I get it.
And so that's really where Visibility CFO and tax advisor came about, and
Yeah.
why we're continuing to seek out clients and entrepreneurs who have that need to
Yeah.
want to be strategic on the stacks on the tax side, but also on the operation side. We kind of marry the two, and then
Yeah.
as they are being strategic, they're typically growing and deploying capital back into their business so they can grow,
Yeah.
and
Of
that
course.
typically yields a lot of need for legal services to stay out of trouble as they engage different businesses or they're buying real estate. And
Yeah.
that's where our legal side comes into play. But
Got
as far as our
two of the worlds.
background, yeah, as far as my background, this love and this spirit for entrepreneurship, both my wife and I realized there's a lot of both tactical but also compliance
Mhm.
aspects of a business that people just aren't educated in,
Yeah.
but they have great vision, they have great execution,
Yeah.
they're great business leaders, but they can get in a lot of trouble and abandon the effort of being an entrepreneur
Mhm.
because of these very important decision making aspects and information that we learned and have realized we have a very strong and valuable skill in deploying and providing to our clients. And so
Sure.
marrying the two up is we've seen businesses just grow and flourish as a result. And we're not always there. We're there up into the point where they get big enough where they're able to hire these individuals
Yeah.
full time into their business. But we are that bridge over the gap between small to medium to even large size companies.
Well, that's
So
amazing.
yeah,
I really appreciate you giving us a rundown of all of that. And because I asked this particular question about the background and just kind of the early starts, just because to me it gives an understanding of who you are foundationally. Like
yeah,
it's like the roots of the tree. You can find what's, if it's good or bad based on the roots and where it comes from. And so it's really amazing. One, particularly, kudos to you for working with your wife. I know that can be a challenge in itself, just because so for some people,
we
and
hear that a lot.
I work with my wife too, and it's like a communication skill that you have to learn is that it's one of those things where it's like it's your wife, it's also your partner who wants to see success and also all those things. So communication is key, and having those kind of moments of like, this is the career, this is a job, we have to go through these down, ups and downs together. So, that's kudos to you and your wife for starting that. I would love to ask this really quickly before I get into my
Yeah,
actual questions. It's like, what was
please.
that
Yeah.
conversation like with you and your wife, when you first were like, hey, let's make this into something we do together? Like, was there a lot of dialogue, or was it just kind of natural, like, oh yeah, we should probably, this should be a business, like, sort of deal?
Yeah. Well, my wife really enjoys being an attorney. She
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily enjoy the lifestyle
Yeah.
of a traditional law firm. She had a wonderful boss who took her under
Mhm.
his wing, and really kind of coached her up, mentored her, and helped her become who she is as an attorney today.
Yeah.
Very confident in the service she delivers. However, we have four kids.
Mhm.
Currently, our oldest is a senior in high school,
Oh,
and then 2 years
congratulations.
younger, all the way down, down into middle school. And so, very busy life, lots
Mhm.
going on.
Yeah.
In 2000, between 2000 for a couple of years, between 2015 and 18, I was I was working for a large consulting firm as in
Mhm.
their office of the CFO, and I was essentially being deployed as an interim CFO to
Got
bridge
it.
the gap between firing the previous and hiring the next, but making sure things not only maintain but improve. And
Mhm.
that was a fascinating experience, really great for my career, but it was really rough on the family.
Yeah, I can
So in
imagine.
2018, my wife approached me. She's like, and I had kind of talked about, hey, we should, come and work together. It was really difficult. She had clauses where if I brought her, a client, had to charge her large billable rate,
Yeah.
which was super extravagant, not super affordable for a lot of my clients that I was working with. Um, and so, anyways, it was real difficult. Also, just being in different states
Mhm.
and whatnot. So we thought we need to really join efforts here and do this and take control of our lifestyle. We have kids that were getting older
Yeah.
and wanted to be involved with their lives and not only see them on weekends like I was doing at the time.
Yeah.
And so in 2019 is when earlier in that year in 2019, my wife stepped away from her law firm job
Mhm.
and started spurring up our consulting practice. And in June of 2019, I stepped away. And
Wow.
I would say we birthed this concept of consulting with companies
Mhm.
that were roll up that wanted to bring their back office functions. So that's like your payroll, your HR, your marketing
Yeah.
functions within a business that can be shared across other businesses. So a lot of our business owners and clients that we have, their profile is they own lots of different businesses.
Okay.
Sometimes it's all one business, but different locations.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's literally different businesses, but bringing their back office to a shared service organization that can support all of those
Mm.
is really where we got our start. But in doing that, it has evolved into, CFO focused tax advisory services because all of them are typical pass-through entities. They're
Yeah.
owners of entities that they're not corporations like what you've seen here about on Wall Street. These are, closely held, one or two owners,
Hmm.
and it all
Hmm.
flows up to them, good or bad. And so they want to know the tax impact of their businesses. So we provide that lens.
Yeah.
But knowing that, hey, we can provide this valuable skill, that's where that conversation was birthed. So it was kind of
Yeah.
out of necessity for our children
Sure.
getting older, the lifestyle that we desired, and then also just realizing we have a valuable skill set here that we can provide,
Yep.
not charge, but trade for good,
Yeah.
for a good living that probably is more lucrative than continuing to do this, in these larger firms that would be great and
Yeah.
comfortable, but the lifestyle wouldn't be what we desired for our family.
Right.
So that's where a lot of that came about. We've had to learn a lot. Building a business in a service-based industry is difficult because
I can
you
imagine.
never feel like anyone can do it as good as you. So you're always like, this is how I want it done, and and you got to remember that everyone's human, everyone's learning, and so
Yeah.
the business side of building a service-based company like we have has been. I always thought that would be the easiest, but that's actually it's the most complicated aspect of this. I would think of any business because we've seen our clients also struggle with it, no matter what industry they're in. So it's just kind of funny to watch
Yeah.
both us and them struggle, and us be the consultants, the ones that with the answers or should have the answers, right? And
Yeah.
so,
I really do appreciate that load. Like again, it's a really interesting to me, especially when you're working with a spouse and just the relationship, the dynamics, and what spurred that inspiration to work together and the business at large. So thank you for giving me a
yeah,
little bit of insight into that world. So now I'm gonna
yeah,
get into the questions that I've written down and
please,
have.
yeah, yeah,
So a lot of business owners see their accountant once a year at tax time. You brought that up in your previous introduction, but how does having a CFO service like Visibility change that relationship?
yeah. Pretend we are going. Probably the easiest way to think about it is by the time you see your tax person at that one point in time,
Yeah.
that's probably 80% of everybody. There are the few,
Hmm.
maybe the 20% that try to meet with them in that last quarter to
Okay.
try to talk about what last minute things they can do. So we're literally in that right now, right? This is
Yeah.
October to December. What can I be
Q4.
doing before the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably 95 to 99% of all clients in a traditional CPA firm. Those two buckets.
Okay.
What we learned is real planning, real strategy can yield like thousands of dollars in tax savings if
Yeah.
you're meeting and being coached by somebody that's meeting with you. The
Yeah.
traditional thought or reply to that is, well, that's going to cost a lot of money if I have to pay someone to meet with them all that many times. And I'm just like, true. But what you pay the IRS, what you pay the state, and what you pay your tax professional, if you combine all those together and you
Hmm.
compare it to a typical scenario where meeting with a firm like Visibility CFO in tax advisory, what you pay your professional, what you pay the IRS, and what you pay the state is significantly, when you combine the two, is significantly less than
Yes.
the prior scenario. Plus, you're going to be getting a lot of education. You're going to be
Yeah.
understanding your business, not just from a tax lens, but from a total financial lens. You're going to be able to make better business decisions. You're going to be able to understand how you grow. You're going to understand how to organize your business. You're going to keep the skills that you have and what you do best, being the visionary, being the executor and on decisions and being that figurehead, but you can now be empowered with the mindset that you don't have to worry about some of those, not only compliance, but what else could I be doing questions.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
have that answer already at your fingertips that you're doing everything imaginable
Yeah.
because that's what we do is I'm personally part of an organization called the CTC. It's a tax coach designation
Okay.
where it's a group based out of San Diego, and all they do is they study and they research how to implement tax strategy,
Oh,
how to
awesome.
spot scenarios. And so our education through that and other resources really puts our focus there. And not that we're smarter than other tax professionals, we're not.
Mhm.
What we've done is design our business model so that we can have the capacity to be more focused on minimizing tax. And we know that
Yeah.
minimizing tax is what most people are thinking about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some of the common complaints that we get is like, I see about all these tax strategies. My CPA or my EA doesn't ever talk to me about those. And my initial thought is, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Right. They're trying to make a living. And so they need to have, right. A typical CPA can do about 500 tax returns in a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, average on average, and they're going to make a great living doing that. But the thing is, their focus is, I'm going to charge you to prepare this tax return to make sure you don't get in trouble. I'm going to address your notices that inevitably will come from the IRS or from the state. So, and that's going to be like 90% of what I charge you for. If you want strategy, I just don't have the bandwidth because I'm dealing with all these clients, and I can't convince you to meet with me throughout the year because I'm going to have to charge you more, and I'm going to have to think more like a strategist. And that's not my business model. And that's typically all, I would say almost all firms, especially in the mid-tier space, the small to mid-tier space. So visibility CFO and tax advisor, what it means to work with the CFO focused tax advisor is we're going to work with you, not only with that financial lens to make better operating business decisions, but also with that tax lens to be able to minimize your tax liability. We want to make sure that your tax savings is so significant that working with someone throughout the year makes financial sense.
Okay.
And that typically includes not only just the tax planning, but it includes the CFO financial planning. Yeah. And it also includes the legal planning. So doing things that keep your business out of trouble, you're going to save thousands, hundreds of thousands in a lot of cases as a result of preventing, being sued. A lot of our clients get sued. And we typically have a pretty bulletproof, documentation, whether it's a handbook, whether it's our contracts, and we're able to quickly squash those and not have to charge a lot of money because we've done the work on the front end. So it's a proactive approach from those three lenses. And that's really where the distinction of visibility as CFO and tax advisory comes into play and makes a difference in the minds of our clients and those that we speak with. So, and we don't, I would say there's a lot of tax advisors out there, tax strategists, and they're really great. Yeah. And they do great work. They can do better work than us in a lot of cases because there are a lot of very smart people out there. But I will say, one thing that we've seen is not set well with me is they typically charge. They can't say that they charge as a percentage of the tax savings, but they talk about based on the complication of the tax strategy. Yeah. But it's typically, if you're going to save them 100,000, you're not going to just charge them 5. You're probably going to charge them 20 to 25 at least. Yeah. Whereas it may, we just charge based on the amount of time that goes into it. So it may only be $8,000 to yield that $100,000 tax savings. But if that's all the time that it takes us, that's all we're going to charge. We're not going to be like, hey, we should be able to get paid more. We're more value. That's not what we're doing here. And that might be a flaw of our business model, but it's just the only way that I feel like, I'm doing right by my client. But
hey, I get it. There's a level of like, there's a level of like wanting to be transparent with your clients and just wanting to give them the fairness that is what you're trying to do. So I appreciate you even just divulging that much. You've brought up some kind of difficulties and challenges that both your regular CPA tax person that you work with and the business owner at large might be not inclined to knowing or just be knowledgeable on. But for you, I would love to understand what are some of the biggest financial blind spots you see for small business owners that they struggle with, and how can they get ahead of them?
Yeah, I would say the biggest blind spots. Oh man, that's a loaded question. Let's just talk about plainly the tax side. What we do throughout the year is we close your books. Typically companies don't close their books. Okay. A business owner will make decisions based on the amount of money in their bank account, right? They kind of like how a lot of people live their personal lives. They look at their bank account. Do I have enough money? Then I can go buy this, and if not, then I can't. It's really hard to know though what's on the horizon. What are the I think people know it in their heads, like, oh, I've got a car payment coming due, and this whatever. In a business, it's very similar, but it's typically a lot more complicated. There's a lot going on with payroll, with marketing, decisions you're thinking about both growth, but not spending too much money at the same time. And so there's a lot of information that's out there. Yeah. And typically where it resides is in the head of the entrepreneur and in the bank account.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's it. They don't really
That's it.
look at
Yep.
their QuickBooks file or their financial statements. So the blind spots that I would say is you don't have a lens or an operating dashboard to help you see how your business is performing
Mm.
at least monthly. And on a lot of cases, we go weekly, especially when we're looking at cash forecasting.
Okay.
So some of our bread and butter tools, and this is on the CFO side, right? I know I said I would start on the tax, but tax does blend in well.
Yes.
We close their books so that we have a financial based either on GAAP or accrual or on cash
Mhm.
based on what their needs are. But then we're also forecasting cash on a weekly basis. So we call
Got
it a
it.
13-week cash forecast. Helps them plan out how they're going to deploy their money, right? And
Mhm.
how they're going to spend it and how it will yield revenue, how it will yield, future costs. If I'm going to hire this person, they should be able to yield, X amount more in revenue, but we see that taking 3 weeks,
Yeah.
4 weeks before that happens. So we plan that all out, and helping business owners understand the difference between a forecast and a projection. We do build
Okay.
projections. We call those tools capital planning tools, and
Okay.
that's really mapping out over 12 months a company's business model. So in that's mapping out the strategy, whereas the cash forecast is mapping out the sources and uses of cash in a business. Those
Got
are
it.
two of the lenses that we help people see. The other one, which is important to tax, is we close their books on a tax basis. So it's
Mhm.
like we're preparing their tax return every month. The
Okay.
reason why you want to do this, you want to know what your target is. You want to know
Yeah.
what it is you're working with. And so
Yeah.
understanding where your tax liability is, from your business at least, and how it will roll up to your personal
Mhm.
1040s. We're looking at your tax basis taxable income.
Mhm.
What's going to
Mhm.
flow to you? We're going to break that into the different types of tax classifications. Is it a capital gain? Is it normal business operations? Is it a Schedule E rental,
Yeah. Yeah.
income? And so we're looking at it that way. From there, we can say, okay, we have X amount in tax liability that we need to strategize to be as minimal as possible.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing all that we can, whether it's, hey, you're going to be growing anyways. Let's make
Yeah.
sure we invest in these kinds of assets that will yield tax deductions. Or maybe there's a credit out there, and research and development tax credit,
Yeah.
which yields money back. And it looks like you've been doing it. You just don't realize that we could actually classify these expenses as R&D to be able to get some of that money back. So we're
Yeah.
looking in the tax code for ways to apply or align strategies to decisions you're going to make anyways in the
I
business.
like it.
And so those are some of the blind spots that business owners don't even have an inkling towards, because that's just not what they're doing. Business
Yeah.
owners typically they're visionaries. They know their industry, and they know how to execute. They know how
Yeah.
to make decisions and not hesitate. But what happens is they're they're looking at their bank account, they're trusting their gut, which is really information that's floating around in their heads,
Mhm.
and they're
Mhm.
going out there making decisions. And a lot of business owners are really, really good at it. But what what we do is we make them even better. We enhance that skill set and that ability
Great.
with
Great.
information.
That's awesome. Um, I mean, again, it's one of those things where it's like we, yeah, the difficulties of like not knowing what you don't know and
Yeah.
having someone there to back you up and also just provide some semblance of assurance with a long term and a more forecastable short term strategies and guides will always kind of give you an ease of mind and more confidence to move forward in the growth of the business. So as we're talking about growth, well, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is how can an owner tell it's time to bring outside financial leadership or a fractional CFO?
Sorry, ask that question one more time. I'm not sure if
So,
I
so
want to
when
make
a
sure I
business
answer it the right way.
starts to grow and gain growth, how can a owner of a business know that it's the tipping point of adding in outside financial leadership or a fractional CFO?
Yeah. So, and there are different tiers, right?
Hmm.
I would say almost everyone that wants to pursue an endeavor to make
Yeah.
money outside of a W-2 job
Yeah.
needs to implement tax planning.
Okay.
So we do have a suite of clients that we call them lifestyle businesses.
Hmm.
They're typically, attorneys who work on their own, real estate agents,
Hmm.
doctors who don't work for a hospital as a W-2. They have their own
Yeah.
sort of business where they contract out, right? So there's some both tax complication, but also a lot of significant tax savings opportunities.
Okay.
So that's kind of the first decision. And when we engage a
Yeah.
client, what we typically say to them is, "Hey, there's no harm, no foul in doing what we call a financial 360.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
review your prior year tax information, your profile.
Okay.
We're going to do, depending on what time of the year it is, we're going to do what's called a tax estimate. So
Okay.
we're gonna say, if we were to file your tax return today, this is what it would look like. Then
Okay.
we're going to project that to the end of the year, and then we're going to show them this is what it will look like when you do file your tax return if you just keep going the way you're going.
Yeah.
And then we identify some low-hanging fruit strategies that we know we can
Got it.
implement. And then we talk about the tax savings between if you go down the road this way, just set routine that you're on,
Yeah.
versus if you go down the road working with a firm like ours, where we're going to help you implement these strategies. So we're going to put a hard dollar savings that's within a ballpark to the services. That's like our baseline service.
Hmm.
That's how we engage anyone who's not a W-2. They could
Yeah.
be a W-2 employee, as a day job, but they have a side hustle that they're committed to making their primary form of income in the future. They love this other side passion. They want it to grow into a business that can support them and they can leave their job. So
Yeah.
that's where the tipping point happens from a tax lens. From there, where you really start to engage a CFO from the profile lens is anytime you start thinking, I need to grow this business beyond me.
Yeah.
I want to start. We talk a lot about helping our clients to buy back their time, right?
Hmm.
We're very big disciples of Dan Martell. He's an author, a business coach, but you do not grow, you do not hire in your company to grow your company. You hire to buy back your time. And when you focus
Hmm.
on buying back your time, growth inevitably happens, and it happens on a more sustainable path, and a
Okay.
path where you feel empowered. All the benefits and the reasons for going into business start to surface, and you're
Yeah.
not dealing with things that you don't want to be dealing with. What
Mhm.
you're really doing when you're buying back your time is you're opening up your day to
Yeah.
be able to focus on the things that you do best and not doing the things that you shouldn't be doing. And a lot of smaller businesses, it's really difficult to make those sacrifices to buy back your time. But
Mhm.
the irony is if you can stomach the investment to buy back your time,
Yeah.
and there's a ladder to it that we talk to our clients. When you can do that, you will be more profitable. You will generate more revenue, and you
Okay.
will have more money in your bank account, even though in the beginning it really does look like you're spending more. You're like,
Yeah.
do I really need a strategic assistant? Do I really need to engage this person? Like, that usually happens afterwards, but because you kind of start feeling like you're bigger than you really are at first,
Yeah.
but then you realize your schedule opens up. You're able to think more clearly. You're able to be more creative. You're able to engage your unique ability in what you do best.
Yeah.
And so
It's great.
when that starts to happen, having somebody that provides you the right information from a CFO lens to make better business decisions, including the tax planning angle,
Mhm.
but also, what's your gross margin? What's your contribution margin? What's your break even point?
Yeah.
These are questions that you should know cold when you're at the dinner, you're out, with buddies golfing or whatever. They're gonna be
Yeah.
like, "How's the business doing? How
Mhm.
much are you guys doing top line? How many?" You can just say those things to the CEO, and you'll start to realize that I know a lot about my business beyond my bank account and what's in my head, and that's
Yeah.
empowering. That
Mhm.
makes you a better CEO, better visionary, and a better decision maker. Someone who executes with a lot more confidence.
Mhm. I really do like the last part of that, just the confidence of being able to know the numbers and to be able to spit them out, because that's something that I've been asked many times, and I feel like I've stumbled at least a handful of times, but I've gotten more and more confident as I've run the numbers and been more in charge, or at least more in like insightful and being taking the time to understand a little bit more of our books. But yes, I agree. Like I think having the confidence comes from just being able to know what those critical things that your business is at and where you want it to go. So
Yeah.
having that and just being able to communicate that in your network, and if you do that enough, I feel like that's where you can see real big hops and leaps when it comes to your overall business, being able to like network within and start doing the things like you said. When you have the time and you've opened yourself up to those moments, it gives you that leeway to do so. So thank you for just that last portion of it, because it
Yeah.
really talked to me and spoke to me. So we're really discussing a lot of this. We discussed already, like it being Q4 and the end of the year. And one of the things that I wanted to give my audience is, if you could give every small business one piece of advice to improve their financial health for the rest of this year, what would it be?
Yeah. Don't wait to understand where you are from a tax lens until next April.
Okay.
Understand where you are now.
Yeah.
Many people, and look, I'm not political. My leanings actually go in both directions on a lot of issues. And it's a very difficult time, right, in our world, in our nation. But the one big beautiful bill act that was passed earlier this year did open the door for a lot of tax planning opportunities.
Okay.
There is money on the table, and I know a lot of people, they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because life is happening, and I get it. Look, I have 4 kids that are in the most, time consuming parts of their lives.
Yes.
And as a parent, there's a lot that I don't want to miss out on. It's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Our service exists primarily to provide a net zero or even net negative, in terms of like, you're going to get more money in your bank account and be more empowered to understand what decisions you could be making, not only now, but in the future, to help you save in tax.
Yeah.
Taxes are an obligation of as being a citizen, but not paying more than you should is not an obligation. And so we help our clients understand that you don't have to pay more than your fair share.
Yeah.
To align with that, that obligation, if you want to call it that, right? And so,
Yeah.
I would say, understanding where you are right now, we provide that service. It's called the Financial 360. It's non-committal.
Okay.
We pull together that estimate and we show you, hey, here's where you are, here's where you will be at the end of the year. If nothing changes, right? We make that assumption that, hey, you're gonna go routine between now and the end of the year. And it's easier to do that now than when you're in like April or March, right?
Yeah.
And so we're going to say, this is where you are. And here's some strategies. And we know typically that with, more work and effort, we're going to probably find more.
Mm-hmm.
But here's some strategies that I know if you can implement, you're going to save a lot in tax.
Yeah.
And, we're going to be able to help you for this X amount plus the savings. You will pay less than you did last year.
Yeah,
and if we can't help you do that, then, we won't engage you, right? Like it won't make sense. But typically where we see that being the scenario is where somebody is just, they have a W-2 job, they have a mortgage, and that's it. Like they don't, their lives aren't too complicated. In that scenario, I would say, don't spend more than $100 and go and buy like a tax act or, one of those TurboTax softwares.
Yeah.
And it's really, really simple. They walk you through it step by step. You should not be paying somebody to do your taxes in that scenario. But the moment that you have a business and that you're doing things more entrepreneurially, you will almost always, unless you're very educated in the tax world, which most entrepreneurs aren't, because if they are, I would say you need to open up your own shop, right? Don't be doing this other thing. You'll make more money potentially. And so, I would say they typically, will leave money on the table. And so that's kind of the biggest piece, is understand where you are. There's not a lot of time that's taken away. It's like if you're sick, go see a doctor, right?
For sure.
If you're going to leave money on the table, find ways that you can get it done and engage someone who can help you do that without taking away time from your life, from your business, and what you do best.
Well, I really want to say thank you again for just giving me a little bit of your time. I just to be transparent, we're recording on a weekend, and I know as a father that's a critical time to be spending with family. So I really truly appreciate that and giving me a little bit of your understanding, your professionalism, and just also just your knowledge and philosophy on a lot of the stuff. So I typically like to end our conversations looking towards the future and what your business might be looking for so that maybe our audience might be able to help in some sort of fashion. So if you have a goal or something that you want to be transparent about with the business at large, I would love to be able to maybe give our audience a chance to help you out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I've kind of explained our mission
Yeah.
on what we where we have a passion, what we're trying to do, right? Educate business owners, help them save in tax, and do in a way that's the fee structure makes sense,
Yeah,
right? Not only does it make sense, it's kind of a no-brainer, right?
for
And we
sure.
don't engage you if it's not a no-brainer. That piece I think is there. On the flip side, a goal that we have is we are as a younger CPA. I remember thinking, as I worked in the traditional public accounting space as an auditor, as a tax professional, and
Mhm.
even as a CFO advisor, I remember thinking, I wish there was a way to marry the strategy and advisor with the tax knowledge that I have, because I really,
Yeah,
really enjoy both. But I couldn't find a firm that really focused on that. They kind of
sure.
leaned, they kind of, funneled into one or the other.
Yeah.
And so we are looking and hiring right now.
Mhm.
We feel like the best profile is somebody who's earlier in their tax focused professional career,
Mhm.
that would like to be more strategic, to be more
Okay.
on the advising side. We don't have a busy season. I know it's crazy, but we just passed the deadline on October 15th, and a lot of CPA firms are very, very busy. That's when the extension deadline was due for 2024.
Got it.
Our life was great. We didn't have it. The reason why is because when you meet with someone throughout the year in your tax planning, then
Yeah.
you can filing a tax return is just an afterthought. I mean, we do it
Mhm.
right, we do it timely, but we don't. Some people we extend, but we're not like grinding because we have your information already.
Got it.
And so
Yeah.
that business model is very attractive to a tax professional that doesn't enjoy the grind, all at once and wants to, sort of spread that work out and have work throughout
Okay.
the year. And so we're looking for professionals that fit that profile. So a
Mhm.
tax professional, 1 to 2 years out typically is great, has a couple of busy seasons under their belt and would love to be more of a controller, CFO focused tax advisor. If
Okay.
that's your goal and you're wanting to move in that direction in your career, we have some good opportunities with our firm. As you can imagine, our value and what we offer to the community and is important and very attractive.
Mhm.
And we get interest from a lot of clients, but we have to like temper that demand a little because we need to train more people because we don't.
Yeah,
A lifestyle is very important to us, and we
for sure.
won't just take on work because it's coming our way. We want to make sure that we have the right service providers to provide the right kind of attention. So
I
that's
love
kind
that.
of our goal and what we're looking for. But and that's both on. And then my wife's law firm that does support the CFO. She doesn't do any external legal work.
Mhm.
It's purely to help our clients to grow and develop. As a result of our growth on the
Yeah.
CFO side, her law firm has also outgrown her. So
Mhm.
she's looking for attorneys,
Okay.
who are interested in working non-litigation, but more focused on corporate and the preventative
Got it.
litigation space.
Perfect. I mean, I just again, I had a lot of fun today. I never know. I'll be honest. The financial side of in the tax side gives me anxiety, gives me heart palpitations. It's scary.
There's
It's
a
a
lot of
little, it's, it's, my financial literacy isn't where I want it to be, but I'm learning and I'm slowly it's adjusted and I've become more comfortable with it. But again, very early on, I was just like, oh, the sweats, the
yeah.
sweats of like, am I doing this right? Am I putting myself in financial risk and all of that things? But as I've grown and as I've learned, I've become more confident, and it feels better emotionally. But again, I really do when I get to meet other professionals like yourself who are sharing this knowledge and sharing and willing to share this knowledge and be transparent about what they do, it gives me more confidence in in our community that there are individuals like yourself who really do want to help and provide an opportunity for real true growth by understanding the numbers and having a plan and having a roadmap. So Andrew, I thank you and give my best to your family. The senior man, the first ones, my parents like to go back and say like, the first one out was, easy enough. And then after that, it got a little bit more difficult because my brother was like their last, the last one. He's not, so as you become slowly into that empty nester phase, it tends to come at you pretty fast.
It's crazy. I can't believe I'm old enough to have a senior. I'll be honest. It's nuts. It's nuts.
Daunting.
But
It's very daunting.
we're excited. He's a good kid, and
Good.
we feel blessed.
Thoughts of career path at all for him?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he wants to be on Wall Street. So
When you're around the money and around the
yeah,
lawyers,
he hears us talking a lot. He's like, he's really big. There's some podcasts he loves listening to. I don't know if you've heard of Acquired, and there's these two VCs who really they like break down businesses, and him and I listen to him and talk about things. So he's trying to be on Wall Street. He probably wants to go to investment banking or something in finance that's on the deal side.
Yeah.
So I'm an M&A investment banker, and then maybe moving into private equity. Eventually, he wants to create a roll up. I think that's the goal of his. But yeah, that's when you're a senior in high school, the world is at your fingertip. Like you do anything, right? And so I want him to continue to think big. I'm as a dad, I'm like, I wonder where you're gonna end up. He's got big dreams and ambitions. Yeah,
I love that. I really do love that. And again, I'm excited because mine's 4. So it's a very interesting time. He's still developing some hand-eye coordination and some other like he's interests and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to when things become more solidified and just kind of like you can kind of start to see the path, and that's going to be a fun time for me just as much as right now is. And so thank you, Andrew. We give the floor to you to let yourself promote, let everyone know where they can find you online, social media. If you want to give out a phone number, the floor is yours, Andrew. Take it away.
Yeah, please find us online. That's probably the fastest way. We do have a Facebook, a LinkedIn page. You can look us up at Visibility CPA, but our website is www.visibilitycpa.com. On there, you'll see a link where you can book some time to engage us to talk about your background and your scenario, what your goals are. It's free. I think a lot of people offer that as free, right? Like I'm not trying to say that that's anything special. But what is interesting is the information you'll get from what we call a financial 360, which helps you see if there's a good fit. I would say this service doesn't work for everyone, but it does work for a lot of people who are trying to save in tax, who are trying to have that visibility, insight into their business. Yeah. And all I can say is try us out. If you're ever wondering about how you could manage your business with more of a strategic lens on those 3 fronts, right? Like a CFO that's essentially making better operating decisions with better information from a tax lens, and then also from a legal lens. Yeah. We can help you get there, and we will. I mean, we really have a pretty high success rate. And so really appreciate you having me on the show.
For sure.
It's always a privilege to talk about this topic of tax savings, of CFO lens, contextualizing data, all of these pieces of information is so important. So anyways, thank you, Jose. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully get to meet many of your listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we go, we do have an outro for ourselves. You can listen to every episode of our podcast at findingarizonapodcast.com. Social media wise, we're under Finding Arizona Podcast under everything. And we always end every conversation with a kisses, hugs, and belly rubs to our 4-legged friends. And we will see you next time.